What's up guys, Benny here and welcome to another Call of Duty Warzone video. Now something that I've personally really enjoyed doing is trying loads of different weapon setups. Some are more common than others, but there are definitely some that are less used that are incredible weapon builds. So in this video, we're going to take a look at 10 of the best weapon setups that you're not using enough, including one which I think has almost become a must pick. Also, 94.6% of you watching this video right now are not subscribed, so please make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out and will help you win your next game of Warzone. I promise. So let's start with an SMG that I've started using a lot more recently than I did at the start of Warzone, and that is the MP5. I personally used to use the MP7 as my SMG of choice, as it was a great all-rounder with very little recoil and works well at medium range also. But the MP5 just shreds up close. On your MP5, you want to be using the monolithic suppressor, the Merc foregrip, the 45 round mag. You don't want to be using the 10mm rounds, as they actually have a slower time to kill at close range, which is where you're going to use the MP5. Then you want stippled grip tape before finally adding the F-Tac collapsible stock. Now, I'd never recommend just running an MP5 by itself, as like I said, it's dominant at close range, but very quickly falls off at those slightly longer distances. So when fighting enemies in buildings or you're pulling off flanks, the MP5 is one of the best weapons in the game. So make sure to use overkill and pair it with an assault rifle or sniper, depending on what you prefer. Up close, the MP5 can take just 6 bullets to take a fully armored opponent down, with you dealing 49 damage per shot to the head and then 34 to the chest. Remember, a fully armored opponent has 250 HP, 100 base health, and then 50 extra health points for each armor plate. So a pretty insane time to kill. Okay, next up we have the Grau 556, and you're probably thinking, Benny, everyone uses the Grau, and yeah, you'd be right, but not many people use this particular build, even though it gives you some incredible mobility for an assault rifle. You're going to want the monolithic suppressor, the Tempest Archangel barrel, then you'll want the Commando foregrip and 60 round magazine. But the big change to what I've used in the past is adding the no stock attachment, which increases your movement speed and aim down sight speed. Yes, it makes it have less aiming stability and recoil control, but the Grau barely has any recoil anyway, so it still is so easy to manage. I've actually managed to get some of my highest kill games with this particular weapon build. There are some things to keep in mind with the Grau, as it doesn't have the fastest time to kill and can fall short at close range. But in those medium range gunfights, it really does hold its own, which is why I think the Grau is the perfect assault rifle to pair with an MP5, for example. Use the Grau for medium to long range, then switch to the MP5 for close range, which is a great combination. The Grau will take between 6 to 14 shots to take down a fully armored opponent, dealing 42 damage to the head and 28 to the chest. Its downside is it does have a slower rate of fire with 730 rounds a minute compared to the M13 with 900 rounds per minute and the M4 with 800 rounds per minute. But it's still an incredible gun. Okay, next we have what I believe to be the most overpowered guns in the entire game, and I can't believe more people don't use them. I'll warn you, they are a bit of a pain to unlock, as until you get all the attachments, they're not that great, but it is the Snake Shot Akimbo pistols for the 357 Magnum. Let me just break these down. 2 shots equal a kill on an opponent that's fully armored. 1 shot for the armor break, 1 for the kill. They are the most powerful guns up close in the entire game. You do have to be right in an opponent's face for them to be effective, but they are ridiculous, especially as they're a secondary weapon, meaning you don't have to use perk 2 for overkill, so you can grab either ghost or restock straight from the first loadout drop. You also have incredible mobility and running speed whilst using them, which just makes them the perfect secondary weapon, as whenever you're moving around the map, you're maximizing the speed that you can pull off flanks or get into a fight. Then when you combine that with amped, you're never in much danger of getting caught out by an opponent. Just remember, when using these pistols, you need to pull both your triggers at the same time ideally to get the highest damage output possible. On the 357 itself, you want the 357 long barrel, the 5MW laser, the lightweight trigger, snake shot ammunition, and then the Akimo perk, which is easiest to unlock in multiplayer as you need to get 3 kills in 5 games with the recon perk equipped. But if you haven't, and I'll probably end up regretting this, make sure you go ahead and try them. Use your assault rifle at those medium to long ranges, but when you push an opponent up close, switch to your snake shot pistols and get those easy kills. Next, we have a gun that I think is criminally underused because it seems to be overshadowed by the Grau and the M4A1, which seem to be the most popular choices. But I honestly think it's one of the best guns out there, especially if you're an accurate player, and that is the M13. Recently, this has become one of my most used assault rifles just because it's a laser beam and it's a lot of fun to use. I think partially because it's one of the only guns in the game that I don't use the iron sights for and actually have an optic on it, but it still holds its own without that extra attachment to increase its mobility, damage range, or aim down sight speed. So what you'll want to use on it is the monolithic suppressor, the Tempest marksman barrel, the tac laser, a monocle reflex sight, which is what I've recently started using over the Viper reflex, and then finally the 60 round mag, which is probably one of the most important attachments to have in Warzone. Now, one of the biggest strengths for the M13 is its efficiency at range combined with its headshot damage, which deals 36 damage per bullet to the head, meaning you can drop players within 7 bullets at range. Which, when you think that the M13 has the highest fire rate among the assault rifles and is a laser beam, it makes it a deadly weapon. It's also the perfect gun to pair with either the MP5 or those snake shot pistols, as you have guns that are really strong at all ranges. So if you haven't already, make sure you try out the M13. The next weapon build that players just simply don't use enough is on the M4A1. When I take down an enemy player and pick up their M4 and see that they don't have this build, I'm always a little gutted, and that's the no stock M4. This is statistically the best M4 build that you can have from a competitive point of view, from aim down sight speed, mobility, and overall recoil control. And as long as you can get used to the iron sights at range, which I feel is the only negative with the M4 when you compare it to how clean the iron sights are on the Grau, for example. But what you'll want is the M4A1 with the monolithic suppressor, the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, the Commando foregrip, a 60 round magazine, and then the no stock attachment, which makes you so much more mobile with the M4. As you'll probably note, the M4 is one of the strongest all-round weapons in the game, especially with this build, dealing 42 damage for a headshot and 28 to the body, meaning you can take down a fully plated opponent in just 6 shots if you're very accurate. But if you want an assault rifle for consistent high kill games, I'd choose between this and the Grau. The next gun that I don't see used at all, but is actually very effective at those medium range gunfights, is the SKS. Now yes, the SKS does have a few cons, like the fact that it uses sniper ammo, which you don't get to carry very much of. But what it does have is some incredible stopping power for when you're gunning players down at medium range, where you have the ability to kill an opponent in just 2 shots to the head, with it dealing 175 damage for a headshot and then 57 damage to the chest. Now, when using the SKS, you do need to pair it with an SMG like an MP7, which is also effective from short to medium range because it's not that effective close up. The SKS for a marksman rifle also has a great rate of fire with 320 rounds per minute, which when you pair it with the amount of damage it does is incredible. The SKS does have a bit of recoil, which is why this build is what I found works best for it. You want the monolithic suppressor, the F-tac landmark barrel, the tac laser, then the monocle reflex sight, because I personally feel like the iron sights are not good enough for the range that you're going to get the most out of the SKS. Then you want the Commando foregrip for that recoil and aiming stability without any punishment to your aim down sight speed, and then the SKS is a pretty damn good weapon. Next, we have an assault rifle, which, if I'm honest, I didn't enjoy using at first because it had a lower fire rate, which meant a smaller margin for error, which in a fast-paced battle royale like Warzone could cost you, and that's the Oden. You'll have probably noticed from the ones that you pick up as floor loot, it can be a bit inconsistent, especially with its recoil. But if you kit it out for recoil control and range damage, it can absolutely shred opponents, with it having the highest damage per bullet out of all the assault rifles in the game. The Oden will deal 77 damage for a headshot, meaning you can kill an opponent that's fully armored in just 4 shots at medium range. Though it is what I like to call a specialist weapon, which means you can only use it for those medium to long range fights, and that's it. If you have to use it up close, you're more than likely going to lose against most of the other assault rifles in the game. So it's important to pair it with an MP5, MP7, or those snakebite pistols. On the Oden itself, I'd suggest using the monolithic suppressor, the Oden factory 810mm barrel, a commando foregrip, the 30-round mag, and then a monocle reflex sight. If you like the iron sight, I'd then use a tac laser to increase your aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and aim walking steadiness. But that's the build I'd suggest to use for the Oden. Just make sure to keep fights at distance and land those headshots. Next, we have a set of guns that is completely underused in Warzone, and that is the shotguns, which the R90 is the best for Warzone. The damage output of this gun with a particular build is insane and is very difficult to stop in close range encounters. I'll always try and pair this with an assault rifle like the Grau, M4A1, or even the Oden, so I'm effective at most ranges. Some of the big benefits with the R90 is it's got a large mag size for taking down squads. It can also deal a large amount of damage per pump with a potential 208 damage, so you can take down fully armored players down in 2 quick bursts. Now, the build you want for this is the monolithic suppressor, the forged tac sentry, the 5MW laser, the ranger foregrip, and then importantly, to be able to take down multiple players far easier, you want tube extensions for your ammo. I just love running into a room with this thing and just hip firing. It's a lot of fun to use, and I'm honestly surprised people don't use it more often. The next gun that players just aren't using enough in Warzone is the PKM, which I know sounds ridiculous because why would you use a light machine gun? But honestly, this thing surprised me. The PKM deals 46 damage to the head and then 34 to the chest, which means you can take a fully armored opponent down between 6 to 9 bullets, which is up there with some of the most commonly used assault rifles. It's also got low recoil combined with a fairly solid fire rate with 750 rounds per minute, but having so many bullets in a clip and not really ever needing to reload in a gunfight is where the PKM excels. You want to have an optic like the monocle reflex sight, as the iron sight isn't great. You then want the no stock attachment for that increased mobility, along with stipple grip tape, the 150 round belt, and then the commando foregrip. And then boom, the PKM is a feasible run and gun light machine gun that just doesn't stop firing, which is especially useful when you're playing quads when it can be quite difficult to take every player down. But the PKM is one of the few guns that can probably pull this off. I'll definitely make sure to pair this with a high mobility gun like the MP5 or the snakebite pistols for when you're moving around the map, then whip the PKM out for when the gunfight starts. And then finally, a gun that you're simply not using enough is the Ram 7. Now, the Ram 7, Grau 556, and M4A1 all have the same damage profiles, dealing 42 damage for a headshot and 28 to the body. But what makes the Ram 7 stand out is it has the highest fire rate out of the 3, making it have the fastest time to kill over what are seen as the best assault rifles for Call of Duty Warzone. The downside with the Ram is it's a little bit harder to control with a more varied recoil pattern, but it's still definitely manageable and has a bit of a faster damage drop-off than the M4 and Grau, so is definitely better at short range. You'll want the monolithic suppressor, the FSS Ranger barrel, then the commando foregrip, 50-round magazine, and stippled grip tape as your attachments. But this is definitely an assault rifle that's a lot of fun to use and can pick you up a load of kills, so make sure to try it out. But there we have it, 10 guns that you're not using enough in Call of Duty Warzone that are pretty damn good in my opinion. Make sure to share your favorite down in the comments and smash the like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!